Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide you ongoing support for your leadership journey. And like we've been doing the last several weeks, and you may be seeing Wes a little more often than me, but I'm glad I get to join in today. But like we've been doing for the last several weeks, I get the opportunity to chat with a wonderful person who Wes and I have known for a number of years while working with the John Maxwell team through our certifications. We had the opportunity to return many times for continuing education and mentorship. And through that, we had the opportunity to meet Lane Jones and get to know her. Lane has recently done some work with us for our 2025 Leadership Legacy Experience leadership event. We are bringing in wrap-up keynote speaker Mark Cole of Maxwell Leadership. So Mark has purchased all of John's companies, who Lane works directly alongside John and Mark. She'll be sharing more about that with you, but Lane will be in person with us at this event on June 13th. And thank you, Lane, for being a panelist as well. Lane is the marketing person and the absolute guru for John Maxwell and Maxwell Leadership. So we're going to chat a little bit about Lane, about Lane's clear purpose for accepting a role with leadership. So we're going to bounce some things back and forth. I'm going to start with a quick question here, Lane, or more, let me start like this. Share a brief overview with us, if you're willing to, about your professional background and your expertise in the industry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy. And Wes, I know you're not here, but thank you for both of you for having me as a guest. I'm so excited to be here. So yeah, my background is basically, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I think no matter what I'd be doing, I'd be running my own business today because of how I grew up. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, going back several generations, actually 3 generations. Just kind of people in my family have innately started their own business or made their own living. And so my grandmother was a seamstress. My mother owned dry cleaners. And so I knew at some point I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just had to. And out of all of my mom's kids, my mom and dad have 7 kids. 5 of us are entrepreneurs. So it's just so that's first. I'm an entrepreneur, but also I got into the space of branding and marketing. So when I first launched my business, 2011, I walked away from my last full-time job as an employee and started this branding and marketing business. In fact, I was only doing marketing for a little while. I started out with copywriting and then started moving into social media. So back when Facebook first launched their business advertising platform, I was one of the first users in advertising on social media, and that just became my thing. I helped small business owners. I helped nonprofit organizations and even some churches to get online and start marketing their business online. And so I started doing that, like I said, back in 2011, and then it evolved into doing more brand work because I found that as the businesses got bigger, they needed to actually start to stake their claim in the market, if you will, and have some sort of identity, but also a value that they offered that was uniquely theirs, that you wanted to build a brand around. And so my business evolved from just marketing to now branding and marketing. And that's kind of how I started working with the Maxwell company, as you mentioned.
Right.
I had my business for 4 years. By the time I actually joined John Maxwell, I actually became a certified team member in 2015. And so with that, the current owner of the Maxwell company a Maxwell team saw that I was doing branding and marketing. And he reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to, in his words, play at a higher level. He knew I had worked with small business owners. Yes. And so he knew that the Maxwell company was bigger than some of my other clients. He didn't know I had worked with larger ministries and nonprofit organizations before, but he said, you want to play at a bigger level. So I said, sure. And so he gave me a couple of contracts where I rebranded a lot of the Maxwell team materials. So the guides, and I know some of you who are watching this have been in the programs with Cindy and Wes, and you may have seen some of the Maxwell materials. Well, I rebranded those documents. And then eventually it just evolved to where I was helping more with member engagement. So I rebranded the events and when you walk in, from the time somebody hit the door to the time they sat in the seats, all of the brand experience, I helped create that for the company. And then eventually Mark Cole, the current CEO, invited me to the executive table. And so I assist Maxwell Company as executive vice president of branding.
Okay.
And also help with some of the global marketing that we're doing. I'm heading up the global marketing. And so my business is still here. It's just evolved over, year after year. And so now, in fact, in January, I got to celebrate 14 years in business. I bought myself this huge bouquet of flowers, and it had 14 purple lilies in it. And so,
I love it.
yeah. So
that's fantastic, Lane.
Yes. This is what I've been doing, and I love doing it.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I learned some things there that I didn't know, and I'm excited for anyone listening in to hear your story and hear your expertise, and especially you being, coming in person and being a panelist on our executive panel.
Yes.
So I think we'll get into that a little more. But my parents also, and some other family members, were entrepreneurs, and that's what really developed that in me too. So I can relate deeply to that.
That's awesome. Yes, there's nothing like it, right?
Yeah, there really isn't. Well, Wes wrote his latest book, Leading with a Clear Purpose, and that is the headline of our event in June that we're having Mark and you come in for. For you, what was your clear purpose for accepting role with leadership responsibility and then to continue accepting a higher role?
Yeah, I love this question because, and that's kind of why I started saying, first, I'm an entrepreneur. I think when I realized that it was time for me to start my own business and step out and do my own thing, I honestly think, to be 100% transparent, the reason I left the last full-time job I had is because I had this thought, I know I can do better. Because at that time I was working with a leader who just he wasn't a great leader, great person, just wasn't a great leader. And I was in an environment that was it had gotten pretty hostile where, just everyone's not necessarily on the same page. And then there was a lot of backfighting and infighting inside the organization. And I was thinking, there has to be a better way. And rather than me going to try to find another company, I'm going to start the company that I want to work in. Yeah. And so I think that's really, a leadership decision that I made when I was making the decision to walk away and not go back to another company, is to lead the company that I would want to work at. And I read somewhere a quote, and somebody said, be the kind of leader that you would want to follow. And I think that's such sound advice. And when I started to build my company, there were things that I knew that I learned not to do in some of my other companies that I worked in as an employee, that I realized, okay, I'm going to be the leader that I would want to follow. There's some things that I want to do better. And so one of the first things I know that I did that is kind of different from other companies I worked in is I never asked anyone that I hired to do something that I had not done before in the company. So I've done it all. I had to do my own marketing. I had to do my own emails. I had to do my own website. I had to, and so when I get ready to hire somebody, I'm asking them to do something that I know how to do. And that's a level of competence that a leader has to have, and a level of confidence to be able to bring in people who are going to support you and have that humility enough to know you don't have to do it all, but there's someone else can come along beside you, and you can lead them well by helping them and training them and teaching them instead of bringing them on and hoping they figure it out. So I think with me, one of the first major leadership decisions I had to make was starting the business, and then also learning how to be the kind of leader I would follow. And obviously it doesn't happen overnight. I've made mistakes, and especially with working with people, everybody's not on the same page at the same time. And so with me, I can, on the disc, I'm D and I'm I. And so there is a lot of D that comes out of me when I need to get things done. And so just learning personality types and learning how other people respond in certain situations, and giving people grace, right? Being the leader that I would follow, I would give myself grace. So why wouldn't I give that to someone else? So that's what I think one of my first major leadership decisions was, starting the business and then learning how to be that leader that I would want to follow.
Wow, that's beautiful. You're certainly a great example.
Thank you.
A great example, Lane. I could go so many different directions from my own experiences, but I'll keep it tight here and keep us on track.
Sure.
So I'd like to jump over to all the things that you have done to help Wes and I with this event. We
Yes.
started out, we're coming into our 11th year of providing leadership event in our area, and actually other states come in, and it's grown. Now it's more of a mid-Atlantic leadership event. And like I mentioned, with Mark Cole coming in to be the keynote, the wrap-up keynote, but we needed some things up-leveled. So are you willing to kind of highlight all the things that you've done for us to help us with this year's event?
Sure. Yeah. So as we've shared, I'm in the branding and marketing space, and I didn't share this, but as Mark had invited me to be a part of the executive VP team for branding, Maxwell Leadership went through a rebrand in 2022. We unveiled it, but the work started almost all of 2021. And we took initiative to go ahead and rebrand when Mark purchased all the companies and merged them, as you mentioned. We knew we needed to rebrand. And when we started that work, I led that project. And I tell you, I learned so much about Maxwell Leadership from that perspective in that short period of time of that year, that I did not even realize, there were so many things like products that we had launched and didn't go well, and we couldn't figure out if we wanted to keep them or just let them go. And so in all of that, I learned that to keep the main thing the main thing. So when you all approached me to help you with your event, I pulled on those years of experience from doing the Maxwell events and also doing that rebrand project. And I was thinking, how do we keep the main thing the main thing? And so when we first started working together on your event, we didn't necessarily have a theme that was unique to this event. We had a theme, of course, leading with clear purpose. That was the theme, but it wasn't unique to this event.
Right.
And so one of the first things I remember is I had suggested that we use the theme "Get in the Game." So that way we can make it more actionable and create a sense of urgency around this, and again, make it unique to this event because you all are celebrating a 10-year milestone, right? This is your 10th time doing some sort of public event, and I think that's major, and that deserves its own unique feel. And that's one of the things that I had recommended early on. And you all have been so graceful to allow me to make the suggestions and go along with it. Yeah, well, some people, believe it or not, they say they want the help, but then when you have to suggest something that requires them to make a change, they resist it. But you all weren't like that, so you gave me the grace to speak freely and help you, and you went along with the suggestions because you realized this is something that was going to up-level what you were already doing. So just having that humility from your part helped me a lot to be able to be transparent and help you the best way I could. So we themed the event, Get in the Game. Another thing we did was we redid the page, the look and feel of the page. We brought in different colors and use that Get in the Game theme for your ticket levels, right? Because we want to carry that theme all the way through. And then just so all of you watching, you're going to get a teaser. I'm not going to tell everything, but Wes is also going to be taking that theme through to some of the registration items that you're going to get when you come to the event. So look out for that. We're going to have this theme carried all the way through your experience. And I don't want to spill the beans. I'll let Wes tell everything when he's ready. But yeah, I think that's going to be a fun experience as well. So if you haven't gotten a ticket yet to the Leading with Clear Purpose, Get in the Game event that's coming up June 13th, please do, because we really have put some thought into how to make the experience better for you. And that's one of the things that Cindy's talking about that I've been able to help them with, is how do we create that understanding, how do we communicate that to the audience, what's in store for them. So yes, that's what we've been able to do.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lane. And there's many other expertise that Lane has offered, and I believe we followed them all, or at least what we could. And we may not be able to get into them here, but they've been phenomenal. And some we're in the middle of, and we'll see the outcomes, but they all add value to people, to the attendees coming in. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, even something as little as where to have your VIP section. You're all going to be in the club section for the VIP luncheon. So, that just, again, it's going to be a phenomenal event, a great location, great venue at James Madison U, at the Atlantic Unit Center. It's just going to be awesome.
Thank you, Lane. For anyone listening, that's in Harrisonburg, Virginia, but we'll give you some more about that. Lane, what would you like the individuals listening in here to know about your company and that they may not know? You know, a lot of folks listening in, they may be hearing about you for the first time. So maybe the actual name of your organization and anything else that you would like them to know about.
Sure. So the name of my company is Jones Lane Agency. So my name is Lane Jones, and I know you're thinking, oh, how creative. She just said her name backwards and now it's her company. I actually I was intentional about the name of my company. Early on when I started my business, I had a coach. I've had a coach this whole 14 years of my business. And one of my first coaches said to me, he said, I just see you having a business that's called Jones Lane. Like I'm on an avenue or a street or a road and it's called Jones. So it's Jones Lane on purpose because it's like the name of a lane, a name of a street. And because my name, when I look it up, it actually means path. Lane is like a path or a roadway or a guide. So I've been very intentional. It sounds as simple as it is. I just flipped my name backwards, but it actually has more meaning than not. So the name of my company is Jones Lane, and we do branding and we do marketing. And what I mean, it sounds simple, but really we keep the main thing here. If you're trying to build your business and if you are a business owner and you don't have a clear understanding of your value, we help you understand your value so you can communicate that. And in that communication process, marketing is going to be required. And so we start with the brand and then we help you build that brand through marketing. That's what we do.
And I talk to individuals all the time who are not seeing the value that they offer, or even when they do see it, it's hard to message yourself.
Yes.
So they need to bridge that gap. And I see that's what you do. So that is beautiful.
Yes.
So can you share some examples with us of some projects that you've done or maybe some campaigns that you've spearheaded that were just really impactful to the industry?
Yes. Well, I'll start. Of course, we know, as we mentioned, I work with Maxwell organization. One of the first things that came to mind when you asked that is this campaign that we did called Change Your World. In 2021, John Maxwell released a book called Change Your World, and it was different from his normal books. His normal books are talking about leadership, of course, personal growth, but Change Your World was almost like a passion project for John, because he really thought that it was time for him to write a book about good values, whether you called yourself a leader or not, just in your own family or in your community or with your friends, learning good values makes you a better person. And so the book Change Your World was released, and he co-authored it with an author named Rob Hoskins, who worked with this big organization, nonprofit organization called One Hope. And we decided that we wanted this to be a movement. We didn't want this to just be another book that John wrote, although a lot of his books have gone to bestseller status. But when we launched Change Your World, we created a movement around it. So unlike any other book he's written, from my understanding, because I've only been here for 10 years, this will be my 10th year, but obviously Maxwell's brand has been around for 50 years now, but this is the first time he ever actually did something like this. So I designed a logo for Change Your World. In fact, I can't show you right now because it's on the back of my laptop cover, but was simply CYW, and the Y is a little bit bigger than the C and the W because it's Change Your World. And the whole concept just kind of rolled out. We got apparel branded. John did a whole book tour. And so I designed all the background graphics for all the book tours. So we created this whole package for all the places the hosts use to do all the screens and the graphics on the screens and all the promotions. So we designed all those promotions. We got all of the branding done, and then we launched the book. And then on top of that, John took it a step further, and he did this thing called the Transformathon, where he walked 13 miles. But what he did was it was the whole marathon. It was 26 miles total. And what he was doing is he would walk a mile a day for 26 days. And he invited people literally all over the world to join him. So we did this global campaign that people could join John Maxwell and participate in a marathon. And then we had a culmination day of it in Florida, where we met at one at a school and one at a church, and we just walked around the campus that day. We did 2 5Ks in that day, and that was how we ended that Transformathon event. And so I was able to help that with that and spearhead the project on all of that and help John launch a movement that is still being talked about today. And then, of course, like I said, the rebrand project for Maxwell Leadership. But then for entrepreneurs and small business owners, I've done some things, of course, on a smaller scale. Right now, I'm working with an author who just released a book. And she decided that she wanted to have a bigger reach outside of just the people who would typically buy her book. Her book is about corporate culture. And so we just launched a podcast for her. And we did the podcast. We're actually doing it as a LinkedIn Live. And she's able to now take her content in her book, but then break it down into digestible topics so that she can present that to a larger audience who may never read her book. And this just came about because, again, we're building a brand for her and not just, having her write a book as an author. And so these are just a couple of things. I mean, there's a lot over the course of 14 years, of course, I can share. But yeah, I think that, like I said, I enjoy what I do. And I think the biggest thing that I do is I help people understand the brand is unique to you. And this is what I say about branding. Branding means this: be relevant and noticeably different. BRAND, brand. Be relevant and noticeably different. And that's what I help people do.
Wow. I saw that on some of your maybe LinkedIn or something recently. And I thought, wow, that's really powerful because that people can remember.
Yes.
And then apply. Thank you for sharing that. I remember the Change Your World campaign and had forgotten about the walk, but that was really meaningful.
Yes.
Yeah. What a great way to brand that.
Yes.
So that really kind of segues us into our next segment. I was hoping that you could tell us about the purpose of your organization and really how it aligns with your own values and purpose.
I love this. So one of the things that I know that I'm called to do that I feel like is my purpose and is one of the reasons why I did walk away from my last job is because I do feel like my purpose is to help people know their value. Yes, we said this already, but truly believe it and elevate their awareness of their value. A lot of times we kind of cheapen our own value, if you will, because we try to be humble or someone actually told me that was actually false humility. when you take away something that you feel like is if someone gives you a compliment and you falsely and on a false humility, you said, oh, it was nothing. Right. And you just so casually give away the fact that it was something. That's why they gave you a compliment. Right. Or someone thanks you for something or acknowledges that if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have been able to do something. But then you go back and say, oh, it's no problem. It wasn't that they are saying that it was a problem. They're just acknowledging a value that you added to them. So the best way to respond to that is to accept that and own it and say, you know what, you're quite welcome. Or in the Chick-fil-A example that for those of you who have read the Dan Cathy story, he's trained their team to say, it's my pleasure. And so there's a way that we want to accept that we do have value. We do provide value to each other, right? As humans, we want to be good humans and we want to treat each other right. And we want to be able to add value to each other. And so I help you understand what that really is, especially as business owners. If you can understand the value that you truly bring to the marketplace, then what happens is you no longer compete in the marketplace. And I learned from a business mentor a long time ago, as a business owner, you don't want to compete, you want to create. If it feels like, oh, there's 100 other coaches or 100 other companies that do what I do, don't get into the competition. Well, how can you create something that is of value, that sets you apart, that lets you stand apart? And so I help people understand that. I hope that you understand that about your business. First of all, about you as the business leader. And then also about your company itself, the value that your company brings. And that, I think, is how I'm able to now take your understanding of your value and then create a brand around that. And that's how we help you be relevant and noticeably different, is because that value is really what sets you apart. And then how we communicate that value to the marketplace. I think that's truly what my purpose is to help people understand their value and then elevate their awareness of it so that they feel comfortable talking about it. And then, quite honestly, brag about it, because that's what marketing is sometimes.
Oh, how exciting.
And do that. Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to you talking on our executive panel, on the executive panel at our leadership event.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it too. It's going to be exciting.
And perhaps you'll have a trade show table there. I don't know what all we've talked about, or you're traveling from another state, but yes. I hope a lot of people get to meet you there. We need to line that up and make sure it happens.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, just one more question, and then we'll make sure people know how they can reach you, to get some more of that branding expertise.
Sure.
But there's so many young professionals up and coming, and it's one of the most passionate things for Wes and I is to help develop these young professional leaders. And we develop leaders at all levels, mm-hmm. but it's these youngest professionals that will one day be leading the world for our grandchildren.
Yes.
And we have a lot of grandchildren and treasure our future generations. So for you, what advice would you give to these aspiring young professionals that are looking to advance their careers and become successful leaders?
Yes. Well, you're so right. I mean, there is generation now that's right here, ready to lead, right? And then there's the upcoming generation. I would say this, and I hate to sound like a broken record. Know your value. And the younger you are, the harder that is to understand. And if I could tell my younger self something that I know today, it would be to have figured that out before I left my mother's house, or at least soon after. Because my mom and my parents, you could not stay in their house once you turned 18. You were either going to college or the military, but you were not staying with them, or you would go stay with my grandmother. But you're not in their house after 18. They pushed us all out. And of course, I went to college. And so I loved that I went to college. But what I did was I studied accounting. And it's because I was good at numbers. I was really great at math. And I figured, this will be easy. I'm great with numbers. And I did well in college. But then when I left college, I tried to stick with it. And so I went to law school thinking I'm going to do investment banking. And I was actually in an investment bank. It was my first full-time job, was working in an investment bank. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do corporate securities law. And I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick with this numbers thing. Well, I got in law school and my grades were horrible. And I had never been used to getting anything less than a B. So imagine I'm getting a C here, a C minus here. I ended up with a D average. And I had to go to the dean and beg her to let me take summer school courses so that I could get my GPA up. And I finally finished with a B minus but I just left law school. I couldn't do it anymore. I transferred my credits to get my MBA, and I went ahead and majored in finance because most of my classes allowed me to get that finance degree. And then I minored in marketing. And that minor in marketing is when I realized that I had a value that I could add to people. And if I could have told my younger self sooner to know my value, I would have discovered this about myself sooner. And so there are courses you can take. There are free things you can watch on YouTube. But understand, Cindy asked me earlier, what is my purpose, right? What is the purpose of my business and what do I do? Understand that about yourself. What are you really here on this earth to do? And then use that to fuel what you do next. If you're taking courses or if you're trying to advance your career, stick with your purpose. You cannot go wrong sticking with your purpose. Understanding your value means that, okay, there may be times you need to negotiate for a salary. There may be times you need to take some leadership classes and understand, okay, this is where I want to be, but I'm not quite there yet. Don't wait for someone to give you assignments. When you know how valuable you are, invest in yourself and grow, so that when you ask for that promotion or when it's time for you to make a pivot, you have already added value to yourself and your own knowledge and understanding. And then you're able to continue because you knew what your purpose was and you knew what your value was. And you're not waiting for someone else to give you that. You own that.
Powerfully stated, Lane. Yes, I love that. Well, Lane, how can people learn more about what you're doing and how you may be able to help them?
Sure. Well, definitely, you can use my website. My website address is the number one and then joneslane.com, onejoneslane.com. All of my branding services are on there. And then also LinkedIn. I'm going to be a lot more active on LinkedIn now, especially since I have a client now who's launched her podcast on LinkedIn. But I really want to connect with people on LinkedIn. I'm going to be building that profile up. So I'm on LinkedIn as Lane Jones. The link itself is content, CONTNT with Lane, content with Lane. So I'm on LinkedIn there. So I'd like to connect with people there.
Oh, wonderful. Lane, this has been amazing. We appreciate you so much. And we want you to get tremendous value being a partner with us. You know, I don't think I mentioned this, but you and your business, Jones Lane,
Yes.
get it right. Jones Lane is a partner of the 2025 Leadership Legacy event.
Yes.
And I hope a lot of folks get to not only attend, but to meet Lane while they're there. So thank you again for this, Lane. In closing, for anyone listening to this, Wes and I offer a complimentary resource. We offer access to that. For anyone listening in, this resource is over 100 leadership lessons that we have developed and we've delivered. We even offer it live, but it's not something that you have to jump on live for because it's on a platform that you can access on demand. So whether you want leadership development or if you need continuing education credits along with that, whatever the reason may be, shoot us an email if you would like a free 45-day access to that at admin@dove-development.net, and we'll be happy to hook you up. But either way, if it's something that would add value to you, great. But if not, we want to add value to you just listening in here. Okay, thank you again, Lane, for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you in June.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, everybody. God bless.
God bless. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.